The fall of our precious republic is happening right now. The so-called bank re-regulation legislation openly gives unlimited power to less than 4 private banks and brokerage firms to regulate all financial activities in the United States. Simultaneously, the other 19 members of the G20 are passing identical or close to identical legislation to tie in to this new private bank of the world. Part of the taxing mechanism is to be the Framework Convention on Climate Change. The House has passed the accompanying legislation, admittedly to go under UN control. It states this is for global governance. The U.S. will not be allowed out of this. It will more than double, in their own words, U.S. energy prices. It will micromanage every facet of your life. Taxes on anything that produces carbon. Your dog, owning a dog as it eats meat. Beef will cost more money. Total control over thousands of facets of your lives. This is hell on earth and is unelected and unaccountable. For the next 30 minutes or so, we're joined by Mike Rivero of WhatReallyHappened.com, fellow GCN radio host. And he joins us now from Hawaii via video cam for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. Mike, I want to get into climate bill going out of the committee in the Senate today, right as Merkel gave her speech to the House, calling for the passage of the treaty next month. We're now 34 days out and counting. I want to then get into the open admissions that the CIA is controlling the opium out of Afghanistan at record levels. The open announcement they're killing the dollar. My God, this is really happening. Mike Rivero, good to have you with us.
Aloha. Thank you for having me on the show again today. And you're absolutely right. This whole push for globalism, it should be scaring everybody. I mean, you look at the news and it's just nothing but total fear-mongering. And I've been saying on my own show that obviously this push for globalism rests on 3 foundations. The first was human-caused global warming. Even Al Gore is backing off from that, and he's just calling it climate change now. And I don't know if you've heard about his new sequel to Inconvenient Truth. He's not trying to push it on a scientific basis. He's now promoting the fight against global change as a spiritual quest. In other words, he couldn't sell it as science, so he's repackaging it as a religion that worships the earth, and the way you worship the earth is you throw your carbon taxes into the little wood plate as it gets passed by you.
Well, that's phase 2. You buy your carbon indulgences like people would buy indulgences from the Catholic Church 500 years ago, and that's in the UN Biological Diversity Assessment 96. They say they're going to make it a global religion.
Yeah, they're really trying to do it, and they're trying to push the religion angle because they realize the science is falling apart on them. The second foundation, as you pointed out, they're trying to create a global federal authority to deal with this manufactured global financial crisis. But here's the problem. What they want to put in place is just a larger version of the Federal Reserve. And we already know the failing of the Federal Reserve is the instant that first borrowed manufactured piece of money goes into circulation, more money is owed to the bank than is actually in existence. If you're on a planet, an entire planet, that immediately means the bankers are owed more money than actually exists. Inevitably, there'll be crash after crash after crash after crash. This global financial system condemns humanity to ongoing perpetual poverty for the masses and incredible wealth for the elect. I mean, look at the United States. We now have the greatest disparity between rich and poor of any nation on earth here in the U.S.
We are the greatest debtor nation in history, statistically worse than even the Great Depression for 2 years. We passed that benchmark 2 years ago, and you're absolutely right. The banks, though, they say they failed. They've really succeeded in vertical integration. That's why McClatchy newspapers have done this big detailed report by Greg Gordon, how Goldman secretly bet on the U.S. housing crash to bring down their competition.
Yeah, they did that. They also, Goldman Sachs is playing all these little dirty tricks. They dumped all the subprimes on foreign bankers. They made money off of the California bonds, selling them, then turned around and told their own clients bet against them, and they made more money on the credit default swaps on those same bonds. It's just
stay there. I want to talk more about whether you think they're going to be able to pass this treaty in the Senate. Looks like they are. How we fight that once they pass it. The government drug dealing, all of it with Mike Rivero. I'm Alex Jones.
Have you heard that millions?
We're 8 minutes into hour number 2, this third day of November. It's Tuesday edition, 2009. Mike Rivero is our guest for stations that just joined us. The climate treaty has accompanying legislation in every nation of the planet that's signing on to it. And the House and Senate versions openly give 35 federal agencies complete control, dictatorial power, extrajudicial outside the courts to take over all facets of society, including a tax on all children. California is on the verge of passing legislation. Last time I saw it a month ago, it may have passed, to take away the tax credit on children and then to begin taxing having more than one child. Australia, England, Canada, all the globalist nations are going along with this. Europe's going along with it. And now Merkel, the German chancellor, just completed an hour ago a speech before the House calling for the passage. The Senate has marked it up to go to the full Senate. Debate has now begun on this. Mike Rivero, breaking this down from your research, what's in the bill, what it does. The New York Times is admitting what we talked about years ago, that Gore is making billions of dollars off of this, that the UN and others are only going to give the carbon contracts to him and his company, Blood and Gore. Literally, the partner's named Blood in England. No joke there. It's admitted that Obama owns part of the mercantile that's going to be trading this in Chicago. This is where the bankers who've been waging war against the real economy, criminally consolidating it, now will have government power to shut down all their competition. I mean, this is the worst possible nightmare.
Yeah, we've been seeing it for a long time where the Federal Reserve and its affiliated banks use the courts and use the government to go after any possible competing banking systems. We saw what happened to Abraham Lincoln and his greenbacks. We saw what happened to JFK and his Executive Order 11110. This is absolutely the financial enslavement of the human race if we continue to believe in their system of money. One of the things that really alarms me greatly about this global empire, it's got to have a single financial banking system. And, of course, we all know that the Western-style bankers are absolutely loathing the Muslims because they have a completely different system of banking which doesn't suffer from the crashes and the disparity of income that we see here in the Western world. And so at some point along this path to a global government and a global banking system, there's going to be war between the Western-style compound interest banking and the Islamic system of banking. And this is what they really mean when they talk about a clash of civilizations. Somewhere between now and the success of a global government is a war between Christians and Muslims that they've been trying to generate now for years. Ooh, bad Islam, bad Muslims, we've got to go kill them. You keep hearing that phrase, clash of civilizations. It's a clash of banking systems is what this is all about.
Mike, looking at this, they're now saying, and Feinstein and Boxer that are honchoing this in the Senate, it's passed the House, they don't normally say something's going to pass unless it is. They say health care is going to pass. Mm-hmm. They say the carbon tax is going to pass. All of these are taxes to the banks. Looks like we can try to call Congress, get the buzz going, warn people. A, do you think it's going to pass? And B, as they incrementally try to enforce it, what should our resistance to this be? State sovereignty, states saying they're not going along with it? What should we do?
Well, definitely we have to resist it by any means possible. I mean, going back for an entire year, we've seen that Congress absolutely is not concerned with the will of the people. They passed the TARP and the bailout despite 90% phone calls to the Congress saying, no, do not give our money to Congress. Now Obama's talking about a second stimulus, even as the first one fails to accomplish anything. It is very clearly the government has been co-opted. The government of the United States is co-opted into this globalist agenda. They're taking all the wealth away from the common people to concentrate it at the top, from which they will use it to dictate how the world is going to run. Now, we already know the world is overpopulated. So if we get a global government with a Hitler-type mentality at the top, what is going to happen to those proportions of the world's population that are deemed non-essential or non-productive? What is going to happen to them? And before you answer that question, go back and look at National Security Study Memorandum 200 that was official U.S. policy during the Nixon administration, which called for overt and covert methods of birth control to reduce the world's population.
Well, let me expand on that. Yesterday, I showed the headlines in Canada, Australia, and England with their environment ministers on the same day 3 months ago saying we must cut our population by half. We must raise taxes on people that have children. That is in the Copenhagen Treaty. to make them not have children. That's how it began in 75 in China. Then in 81 it became law. And the headline was, in the London Guardian, England must cut population to 30 million. That's by half. There's 60 million. The diabolicalness of this, the diabolical nature, is what I think a lot of people have trouble coming to grips with. And a lot of yuppies think, well, good, get rid of those third world people. They don't understand that the globalist number one group they're targeting is actually Westerners, regardless of color. And we've gotten the internal audio tapes of Planned Parenthood, where they're talking about their mission being getting rid of the black people. And we have the documents that came out with Margaret Sanger calling black subhuman that had to be killed. But these are modern audio tapes that were all over the news this year and last year